Hello and welcome to this video. QuickBooks has recently just updated its Snap Receipt feature and it's time we had a look at it.
Cause I can get him out of my head.
My name's Patrick, I'm a chartered accountant and also a QuickBooks trainer, and today we're going to look at Snap Scan for QuickBooks. Now this has been a feature that I've been using a lot with my clients, so the idea that all these receipts that they get can be put in effortlessly straight into QuickBooks itself. And before we were able to use our phone to take a photo of the receipt and put it in. QuickBooks has now opened that functionality up, so there's now more ways in which we can get the information into QuickBooks, and they've got a really useful feature that's going to make it even easier for us going forward. So let's have a look at it and see what it's like. Okay, first of all, let's figure out where it is we find our Snap Scan feature. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the banking page in the top left hand corner, and from banking I'm going to go into the new area up the top here called Receipts. From here we can see that this is where all our information is coming in regarding our receipts, and it's quite similar to the idea of the banking screen where we have for review and reviewed. So the idea is that the for review elements are going to be the items we need to go through and look at, but the reviewed elements are the items that have already been put in there. Now straight away, if you compare this to the first video that we looked at, there's some key differences. The first is at the top here, we now have a send to receipts. So now we don't just have to take a picture on our phones and get the information to QuickBooks that way, but now we also have the ability to send a receipt directly from our email. So if one of your suppliers or one of your client suppliers has emailed you a particular transaction, now you're going to be able to just send that directly from your email and straight into QuickBooks. So there's one extra step for it that's going to be really useful. You'll notice it says send to receipts at QuickBooks.com, and we also have the manage senders option just here, which is the place where I've just clicked into it. Lets me know which account has been activated so that when I send that information in, it's then going to come back to me. Okay, so that's quite useful. So we're going to have a look at that in a moment. The other couple of new features, one of them minor, one of them major. One of them is this duplicate option down here. That's new, so that's a really useful feature, where if I've already been trying to play around with all these receipts that I've got and I've forgotten that I've already tried to include one, or I wasn't sure I've included it, now I just take a photo of each and every one, and if it is a duplicate item, come up for me and I can then delete it accordingly. So that's a really good feature. That's going to be useful to a lot of our clients. And then the major one is if I was to go into any of these receipts, so let's go down to this bottom one down here. This is for Yo Sushi. Let's review this transaction. Remember, reviewing the transaction gives you a breakdown on the left hand side of what it is that you've taken a photo of, and the right hand side it's already started to take information for me. The big one though is at the top here, document type. Now before this you were only allowed to send in receipts, or what we would call them on QuickBooks as expenses. Now we have the opportunity to bring in bills as well. So that's a really nice feature there where we don't just have to put receipts in, we can put bills in as well, which is going to open up to a lot more use cases for us. Right, so that's a bit of a breakdown of the uses there. You'll see I've already got some information in there, but let's see how I got that information and how quick and easy it is to do it. So let's have a look at the phone itself. So from the phone point of view, you'll notice that as soon as you go in there, as before, we press the create button, and from the create button, we can press snap receipt. Now, when we do snap receipt, basically it's going to come up with all these receipts I've got here, and before I was putting receipts like this one in, and it was dealing with them quite well. Now though, we're going to have an opportunity to look at bills. So here's a typical bill from Virgin Business. Now if I take a photo of that, in the last one way in which we did it, we didn't have the opportunity to put this in the bill. We had to kind of dupe the system a little bit and treat it as an expense. Now we have the opportunity to go in there and put it as a bill. So let's use this photo and see what happens. Now notice at that point I haven't actually changed anything. I've not done anything different there. All I've done is taken a photo. And put it in the system. Remember, it's when we go back to the browser that we then have the ability to define what those characteristics are of that bill, and that's when we get to decide if it's a bill or a receipt. So as a client, or as you using the software yourself, you're literally just taking the photo, almost having to forget about it, which is great news. Now the other new feature is the idea you can send an email directly from your inbox and just send it directly to QuickBooks without having to take the photo or extract it or anything like that. Let's see how that works. So I'm going to jump into this email here. Now this is a invoice that's come through, and what I want to do is I want to get this invoice into QuickBooks. For me to do that, what I do is I use the forward button at the bottom, and I'm going to forward to that email address it told me before. So if you remember on this screen over here, it said receipts@quickbooks.com. So let's start typing that in. So it's receipts.quickbooks.com. Now I've already resaved that as an expense. The key bit though is the from area. So under managed senders, I've activated this email address here. That's the email address I need to send it from. And you send it as simple as that. Now that email has now been sent into QuickBooks. So let's have a look at how that gets treated in QuickBooks itself. So in QuickBooks, now I expect to see 2 items processing at this point. And as you can see here, I've got 2 items there. So 635, 633, that seems about right to me. You'll notice that the one I took a photo of, I now have it sat there as the photo image. And this item here, if I hover over it, it will bring it up for me. But that's an indication that that's an email that's been sent in. So both of these items are now being processed. Now I did jump ahead a little bit here, and I've already put these 2 items in here. So let's look at it a little bit detail of how that's going to be dealt with. The first one we put in was the Virgin Media. So let's press the review button. And from here, we probably want to be putting this as a bill, because it says here the payment date is in the future. It's not until the 20th of April 2020. So I'm putting it onto my system now, but I'm not really bothered about it until then. Now, this is new as well, so I didn't notice this before when I looked through. Now it's going to prompt you to create a new supplier. Now, unfortunately, it's picked the wrong supplier in this case. It's actually picked the customer. So I would have to create a new supplier, but not a problem. I'm sure that's sort of thing that it can learn as we go along. So I'm going to add Virgin Media Business. Bill date is picked up for me. Perfect. Due date. Now it's not quite got the due date right here, but I'm going to just put that to the 20th. And category wise, so I wouldn't want to put it creditors. I'd probably put it something like telephone. Now the next bit is a description. So I'm just going to put this. And you'll notice that it's got £4.80 for me, £20, 80 pence. It's picked out all of that for me. And I do have the option to put extra information down there if I need to. So let's save in next and see what comes up on the next one. Basically, it's telling me no matches found. So remember there was that feature in here where if you've already got the item in QuickBooks, first thing it's going to do is grab that information and attach it. So if you hadn't attached it originally, this is a really quick and easy way to get attachments onto transactions. But because it's never been put in QuickBooks before, all I need to do is create the bill. Remember it's a bill, so that's a new feature, and that's gone in there. Now, while we've been doing that, this is really quick, that Virgin Media has automatically come through. So it hasn't taken the 15 minutes it's saying up here. It's much, much quicker than that. And straight away, it's come up with a duplicate. It's found that we've already processed this transaction. Gives me the option to delete, so let's delete it. Press yes. Now that's gone. Okay, our next item was this Apple invoice that came through. So let's review this. It's coming through as receipt. Pay is coming as music store randomly, but I'm sure that's the sort of thing that we can get sorted at any point. But let's put this as Apple. Now I'm going to leave this as a receipt because I wanted to see how this one would come through. So I'm not putting this particular one as a bill. I'm going to leave it as a receipt, or again, our terminology we normally call it is expense. From a bank and credit account, I would put that as going from my business bank because I've actually seen this expense coming out, so we want to match that later. Payment date is picked up perfectly for me. Category computer equipment. I wouldn't call it depreciation myself, but let's just put computer additions at cost. Perfect. It's come up with that. It's not quite picked the VAT out on this one, but that's because it doesn't show the VAT breakdown on this one. Technically, this isn't an invoice. This is an order. So technically, I really should be waiting for the invoice itself. But let's just use this one as an example. So I'm going to put 20% in, and it works out the VAT for me. I'm going to put here Magic Keyboard, and I can then press Save and Next. Again, it's going to have to create a brand new one here, but that's fine. Let's create that expense. And that one's been dealt with. So that's been really useful and it's come up. And I'm going to now delete these two ones that have just come through, so we don't need that one or that one. Okay, so that transaction's still coming through there. That's fine. Now let's just look at what the review looks like. So what it's done here is it's shown what it's done. And it's given us the option and told us it's attached to a bill for that Virgin Media, and the Apple Store has created an expense. So let's go and look at this bill in more detail. There it's created a bill exactly how we expect it to have done, and it's put an attachment down here for us. And then when we look at that expense, again, it's come up with a nice expense for us. Everything seems to be there as we need it to be, and it's put the document down here, so it's giving us a proof of it. Again, would probably want an invoice to that as opposed to an order. Now let's see how we interact with the bank. So I'm going to go dashboard, banking and bank. And this is brilliant. So both of these items. Here's my Apple transaction I put in as an expense. Remember, it was an expense, £349. And as you'd expect, like it did in the last one, so the last video we did, it's giving me an option to match it. So let's match that one. And then here with the Virgin Media, it's by saying one record is found, an open balance. Now currently, if I was to duplicate my tab, duplicate my screen, currently if I was going to go to my expenses and suppliers, I have one item that's due to be paid, £5, £4.80, one open bill left. When I go into here, it's found that one open bill for me. I then can press match. And now if I was to go back and refresh this screen here, I now have 0 open bills. Perfect, so it's working as intended. Brilliant. So Snap Receipt now seems to be far more useful than it was when it was first introduced. The idea that we can now add bills to it adds a whole new area where we can make that useful for us. The fact it finds those duplicate items means you can confidently tell your clients just keep taking as many photos as you can and send them in. Or if you're using QuickBooks for yourself, just take every single photo you can because you know you've got confidence QuickBooks is going to find anything that's duplicated going forward. And now we can also see the interaction with the banks working really, really nicely. Finally, the idea that we can just send an email in means that you can get really savvy with things like forwarding rules on your email account. So if you're continually getting an invoice from BT or from someone like that, just set a little forwarding rule, send it directly into QuickBooks each and every time, and you don't have to worry about it. It's going to go straight in there. That's been a real quick look at the new Snap Receipt feature, and it's something that I'm definitely going to be using for my business, and it's something I'm going to be really encouraging my clients to use more and more. If you want more videos like this, don't forget to do the whole like, subscribe and everything else. But if not, I will see you in the next video, and stay safe.
I say yeah. I told him I can be a fighter if you want. I'll be there to catch you if you fall. I can make it brighter when it starts. I told him I would do it all for you, and I know you do it for me too. I can be a fighter if you want. I can be a fighter. I can be a fighter if you want. I can be a fighter if you want. me for staying in bed. My heart is saying